Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Looks like some of you could be doing other better things, but thank you for those that joined. Can we just do a quick poll to find out who is joining from where? So in the chat box, if you guys please just write one word where you're from, that would be amazing. So I can just see where people are here from tonight while we're waiting for a couple of others to join us. And cool, Auckland, Otaki. Great. And for those that are not muted, can I please request everyone to keep yourself muted, please, so it doesn't interfere with anything else. And if you can hear me, can you put thumbs up so then I know everyone can hear me? And if you can see me as well, that helps. Oh, awesome. Cool. Hamilton. Great. Hello, Hamilton. Awesome. Great thumbs up. Oh, great. Good job, everyone. Thank you. Awesome. I'm just waiting for a couple of more people to join us in. Some people are messaging that they haven't received, they registered for the webinar, but they haven't received a link. Half of you are here. Was there an email from Eventbrite with the Zoom link? Yes, yes, okay, okay. So that's very, very interesting. Email with ticket and link. Okay, cool. So maybe it's just some technical issues that people are having. Awesome. So just a little, maybe spam folder. Love it. So I did go live on Facebook as well, on my professional page on Mike Pero. So for those that don't know me and maybe here for the first time, actually, yeah, let's do another poll. So who has been to my webinars before? I've run a lot of webinars in the past. Who's been to my webinars before? Put a thumb up if you've been to my webinar before. Awesome, got one person. That's awesome. That's a really cool turnout. So if you've never been to my webinar before, can you put a smiley face? Oh, there's another Hamilton person. Great. If you've never been to my webinar before, can I get some smiley faces, please? Any faces? Oh, cool. So really, oh, awesome. Fireworks. Great. That's awesome. That's really cool. So a bit of a backstory. Back in 2020, when the pandemic first hit, I started doing some webinars to help out a lot of people that were already homeowners and they were unsure because I was getting daily phone calls from people saying, oh, what should I do with my mortgage? You know, now that the pandemic has hit, what are we going to do? We're in lockdown. So then I thought, all right, let's go online. Let's try to help people. So that's how it started back in 2020. I was 9 months pregnant and I was dedicated and I was running those webinars every single week until I gave birth, and then I carried on after I gave birth too. And my baby behaved really well through those webinars. And that's the reason why I do them at night, not during the day. So 2 years forward, I've decided to come back to my first home buyers webinar. I've done some last year and I've decided to do some again this year. So for the next few weeks, again, I'll be running different series of webinars. So tonight is going to be for the first home buyers. And then for the next few weeks, we're going to be addressing for existing buyers that, existing homeowners that are looking to refix their mortgages because the rates have gone up the wazoo. And we're going to be also addressing some other questions with some guest speakers. And I also do monthly webinars as well. So if this is the first time you hear me speak, do sign up to my newsletters. We do this monthly. So every month I go online and I give you a little update. It's only 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but helps you to keep in the loop and understand what's going on. So a bit of a background story about me. My name is Zebunisso. I'm from a country called Tajikistan. If you have never heard of this country, go on Google. I've been in New Zealand since 2003. So that's almost 19 years now. Yeah, this Christmas. And I've got 4 kids. My eldest is 9. My youngest is going to be 2 on 1st of June. I've got 3 boys and a girl. So a lot's going on in my household, but I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. I live and breathe mortgages, and I live and breathe helping people into their homes. My first home buyers, my absolute favorite clients, because just like you, 20 years ago, when I first came to New Zealand, I had no idea about anything, and I went to school, and then I finished school. They didn't really teach anything about finance. Went to university, well, sort of finished finance degree, but nobody really taught me how to buy a house in New Zealand. And then when I got a job, I was working, paying bills, paying rent, and until I met my husband, and then he was like, we should buy a house. It's like, okay, cool. And where do you get the information? It was really, really hard to find information. So we went around to the bank, we went to mortgage brokers, we've discovered mortgage brokers, and decided, yeah, that we want to buy a house. And we bought a house, and I got a job at the bank. And I spent 7 years at the bank, ASB Bank. And then after I had my 3rd baby, it was a bit hard working there. So we decided I'll buy my own franchise. So I've been a mortgage advisor for the past almost 4 years now. Right, without further ado, looks like we had a couple of more people join us. So that's a fantastic turnout. Everyone's muted. Fantastic, cool. Let's start the presentation. So tonight's presentation is aimed for first home buyers that haven't bought a house yet, looking to buy, and it's pretty much addressing step by step. Now, save your questions till the last. I will address all your questions. If you've got them and if you want to put them in the chat box, absolutely go ahead. If I haven't covered them throughout the presentation. And at the end, I will address them and we can have a bit of a chat as well. Awesome, should we start? Great, let's do this. I'll share my screen and away we go. Where's my button? There we go. Everything you need to know about buying your first home. So Mike Perry Mortgages is a massive franchise around New Zealand, for those that don't know. Good. So we covered that. So why would you come to me instead of a bank? As a mortgage advisor, I've got an overview of all the banks, all the main banks in New Zealand, and I can act as a third party. So I'm not, when I used to work at ASB, I would only have ASB product and I could only sell you ASB product. And I didn't know what was BNZ offering or Westpac offering or anyone else. Right. So as an advisor, I've got an opportunity to see what other banks are offering and come back to you and say, hey, we should go here or there because they're offering X, Y, and Z. So that's why they normally say, oh, if you want the best deal, go to the mortgage advisor. Right now, it's not about the best deals. Right now, it's about who can actually lend us the money that you need, because at the moment, it's getting harder and harder to get lending. So right now, we can still get mortgages with 10%. So a lot of people always worry about, oh, you know, do I need 20%? No, you don't. We can still get you across with 10%. We were always able to do that. It's just got a little bit harder with the 10%. So we need deposit. We ask you what sort of income you have. And also, we were going to ask you any proof of liability. So do you have any student loans, any personal loans, car loans, credit cards, after-pay facilities? So a lot of people went out and got lay-by facilities. That's your buy now, pay later. And that's actually not that great for the bank. So if you've got any of those and if you're not using them, shut them down. If you've got any credit cards and if you're not using them, shut them down. The less credit you've got, the better. I know there is a little myth going around that, hey, you know, you need to have this for your credit check to show that you're a good person and you're paying off your credit card on time. Bank doesn't really care about it. I'll give you a little secret. Just be good with money. Just make sure you pay your bills on time and you're not getting into the overdrafts. That's the main thing. The banks don't care if you've got a credit card and you're paying it on time. Chances are they will ask you to shut it down if you want to borrow quite a bit and if you only have 10% deposit. So if you decide, for instance, that, yes, I want to go ahead, then I usually, tonight I'll talk about my process, but that should be a general process between other advisors as well. So we'll get you like a form to fill out to understand your current position. And if there are any suggestions we can make from there, then we usually make it. Right. So the stage of this we call a pre-approval. So that's when we collected all your stuff, we've gone to the bank, and the bank gives us a certain amount that says, here's the money, this is how much you can spend on the house that you like. So why do you need a pre-approval? In today's market, time is of the essence, so it takes time to get a pre-approval. If you have 20% deposit, we can definitely get you pre-approval. If you only have 10% or less than 20%, we can't really get a pre-approval. We need a live deal. And I'll explain about the live deal a bit later on. And if you qualify for the first home loan grants, then we can usually get you a pre-approval as well through the first home loan system. So how do you get a pre-approval? Is you either go to the bank and get a pre-approval, or you come to us and we tell you what sort of information we need from you to get that pre-approval going. So let's assume you've got your pre-approval, then what happens? If you don't already have a lawyer, now it could be a good time to ring around and talk to different solicitors, see who you can click with, see how much they charge, because different lawyers, solicitors, conveyancing lawyers, we call them, they charge different things, different amounts. So make sure you find out if they've got packages for the first home buyers, because you don't want to be putting offers on 100 million houses and then getting a giant bill at the end of it. So talk to them, find out if you're not successful with few properties, will they still charge you for it, or will there be a lesser charge than normal? So when you're ready to make an offer, usually I get my clients to come back to me and have a chat with me. And I can help them to place that offer as well if they don't have a lawyer yet. You can also talk to the agent as well about how to make an offer. So this is when, if clients call me and I say, have you placed an offer? It means sales and purchase agreement have been signed and accepted and agreed by the other party as well. So the vendors have agreed to your price. And in today's market, we're seeing less and less auctions, and we're seeing more and more conditions. So what sort of conditions can you put on your sales and purchase agreement to protect yourself? You can put a finance condition, and I ask my clients to put at least 10 working finance days, because if it's less than 20% deposit, and if we haven't got an approval yet, we need the time to also go to the bank and get approval in place. You also will need builder's report if you want to, but the bank will not ask for it unless there's something really wrong with the house. But if there's something really wrong with the house, they will really want you to buy it. That's another question. Title. So this is something the solicitors will check to make sure what you're buying actually matches the paper it's written on. You can also put insurance condition. Again, because I do a lot of stuff myself for my clients. So I do the mortgages, but I also do house insurance and life insurances. So insurance in this instance, we're talking about house insurance. This used to be a big condition back when earthquake was a big thing around, especially Wellington region and Christchurch. You couldn't just buy a house without making sure you can get insurance on it. It got a bit better since then, but still, if you're buying a house that had some sort of earthquake damage to it, then the bank would want to see that you can get insurance on this house. Now, registered valuation, it's always a must. If you don't have 20% deposit, there is no way around it. The reason I'm talking quite harshly about this condition is if you don't put it in there, the bank will want you to get registered valuation, and we have to decline your finance because of registered valuation, you're going to find yourself in trouble, because these conditions are there to protect yourself, to pull yourself out of the agreement if something goes wrong. And if you don't have that condition, you can't pull yourself out of that agreement. You may lose some money. So make sure you put the right conditions in. Not here to scare you, but just to give you a proper warning. Now, there are two kinds of deposits we usually talk about, and that's where a lot of my first-time buyers get confused. So one deposit I talk about for the bank, where we need you to have either 10% or 20% or whatever percentage you've got as a deposit, right? So when you call me, I say to you, hello, John, have you got a deposit? What is it made out made out of, and John usually would reply, I've got a KiwiSaver, I've got $10,000 in my KiwiSaver, and I've got $20,000 in my savings. Great. This is what I work with for the bank application. When it comes to the sales and purchase agreement, and by the way, tell me if I'm talking too fast, because sometimes I do have tendency to go fast, and tell me to slow down if I need to. When we're talking about sales and purchase agreement deposit, this is deposit you have to pay when you go unconditional. So when we meet all those conditions, this is deposit you pay to real estate agent's trust account, right? So it's still part of your bigger deposit, but it doesn't have to be that whole amount. And especially if you have some of your deposit coming from KiwiSaver, please make sure you don't put KiwiSaver amount on your sales and purchase agreement, because it takes time to get KiwiSaver out. And a lot of buyers make that mistake. They're not my buyers, because my buyers know better, but other buyers, they put down an amount that they think they've got in their KiwiSaver. Don't do that. Only put down what you have in hard cash. So ready to go on that same day once you go unconditional. So this is different to the deposit you need for the bank for your mortgage. It still forms part of that deposit, but it's different. So you don't have to come up with 20% for the bank and then another 5% for the sales and purchase agreement, all right? Okay, so your offer has been accepted, now what? Usually this is the time you'll go to your lawyer and they will support you through the next stages, and they'll need to do all the legal side of things. At the same time, I'm working behind the scenes, getting all the finances sorted, or your banker is. If you organize the builder to go through the house, they can go through the house. If you want the solicitor to check the title, and if you have less than 20% deposit, remember, we have to get registered valuation done. And it does take 5 to 7 working days to complete. If you want to get it sooner, there is an urgency fee, and it's $250 urgency fee for it. So once the conditions have been met, you can go unconditional. So this is the moment where we know everything is all done, the bank is giving you finance, the builder's ticked off the house, the registered valuation is all good. You go unconditional, you pay down that deposit, that's it, the house is going to be yours. You cannot go back on it now. There is no chance. If you go back, you're going to lose that deposit that you've just paid to the real estate agent. Now, you can also request an extension if you're not ready to go unconditional yet. So if you need more time, you can ask for extensions. And this is the time where you can still get yourself out. But once you go unconditional, that's it, no way back. So let's talk about registered valuation a little bit more. We have to order it through the system. So if you come to me and I'm helping you with the whole process, I will be the one ordering registered valuation. If you go into the bank and you're dealing with the banker will order registered valuation. You cannot go out there by yourself and order valuation and pay for it and accept the bank to accept it. The bank will not accept it and you're going to lose money. So don't be silly. Don't go out there ordering your own valuation, okay? So this will cost you approximately, well, at the time of the writing of this, was about $900. But again, depends on which region you're in. So I know Auckland, the prices there have gone a little bit more. Other regions may be a bit cheaper. So I've just rounded up to about 900. And it's independent valuer that goes out to the property and looks at it. So if you've got any other questions about valuation, we can cover in greater depth. So we don't have any influence on who will go out and see the property. It just automatically goes to someone in the queue, and then we go from there. Right. So backup offers. Let's cover backup offers. What is a backup offer? You've put a property, you've liked the property, put an offer on it, and you've got conditions still on it. That property is still technically not sold. And someone else still has the opportunity to come in and put a better offer than you. If you are the one that wants to put a backup offer, your offer has to be as clean as possible. So you can't really put many conditions in there if you're a backup offer, because you need to make sure that the vendor, whoever is selling the house, likes your offer more than what they already have. Basically, that's what the backup offer is. Sometimes I've seen them as a great idea if the first offer we know might fall over and you really love the house. You're like, oh, I really want this house, but the agent tells me there is already offer on the house. Should I put an offer in? I'm like, well, put their offer in. It doesn't really cost you anything if you're doing it through the agent and through my help. It doesn't really cost you anything. As long as you don't involve the lawyers too much, it should be fine. And as long as you put certain conditions to save you from it. Right, so what happens between going unconditional and settlement? So this is where you need to organize your deposit for the property, not the mortgage. And you also need to get the money out. So your KiwiSaver, shares, investments, everything needs to happen before the settlement. So you need to sign all the right forms, see all the right people, get everything ticked off. And we also talk about your structure of the loan. So we talk about how do you want to fix the loan, whether you want to fix it for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, 4 years or 5 years. 5 years is maximum in New Zealand. Well, at some point, TSB Bank came out and wanted to do 10 years. And we saw that didn't turn out well for TSB. So they pulled that back now. So the maximum in New Zealand you can fix the mortgage for is 5 years. And we sit down, we have a conversation. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Sometimes we have young parents that, for instance, want to make sure the repayment stays the same for the next 5 years until their baby goes to school and then mom goes back to work. And they just don't want any changes with their repayments and they think 5-year mortgage will suit them best. Cool, they do that. Some people think, oh, maybe in a year's time I'll get an inheritance and I want to pay down my mortgage. So then we only would probably fix a portion of the loan just for 1 year, because we know in a year's time they'll get an inheritance, they'll get a windfall of money that they can pay down their mortgage without any penalties. So different situations suit for different people. So don't listen to your friend that says to you, oh, I fixed it for 5 years, so you should too. Everyone's situation is different. One size does not fit all when it comes to the structure of your loan. And if you get it wrong, then you will see the issues with your loans down the track when you try to make lump sum payments or when you need to sell the house and get out of a mortgage. You know, you may end up with big penalty fees. So make sure you discuss this step quite thoroughly with your advisor. Don't just brush over it and go, oh, just whatever. It doesn't work like that. We need to understand your goals and we need to match your goals to that structure. The other thing you need to organize is insurance for the property as well. So that's where, again, I come and usually give you a quote, or you can, if you don't use me, you're using someone else, then the bank will usually offer you a quote, or you can shop around and get a quote. The reason my clients go with me for their house insurance as well is that if anything goes wrong, they know that they've got one person to deal with. So they come to me, we deal with that. Great. So hopefully that's all clear. Start packing. You're nearly there. Awesome. So what happens on settlement day? Before settlement, let's go back a couple of days prior to it. I said to my clients, go and check the house. Make sure it's in exactly the same condition that you've seen it at open homes. Because what sometimes may happen is people may move out and leave holes behind, or rubbish, or all sorts of different things. So make sure you talk to the real estate agent at the same time. And if it's not up to the standard that you've seen it at open homes, your lawyer has the right to keep some of the money behind on settlement day until they fix those issues for you. So I'll give you an example. One of the clients was moving out and the other person was moving in, and they realized the bulb wasn't working. So the solicitor held some money back until they changed the bulbs. So it can get that pedantic as well. Right. So you've got your house, and hopefully that was helpful. So it wasn't that painful, was it? Now the fun part. Please cover more about the grant and what is registered valuation. Okay. So registered valuation is, we've covered that briefly. It's when a valuer goes out and get valuation done on the property and then gives us a report to tell us how much your property is worth. So if you bought a house for the valuation has to usually come back at about 600,000. It's really rare that the valuation will come back less than 600,000. Although now in this market, we're seeing a little bit of movement. So you could be buying at 600 and the valuation will come back at 580. So this is your chance to negotiate the price down and ask the vendor to drop the price to match the valuation, especially if you don't have 20% deposit. The bank will not be happy with that valuation. Right, please cover more about the grant. So with the grant, it's really interesting. There are certain caps that you have to qualify for in order to be eligible for those grants. And it's very, very hard to meet those caps, shall we say. Depends where in the country you are. That's why I was asking, some of you are up in Auckland, some of you are up in Hamilton. The caps there are crazy, and there is no way you can find properties around that price. So the easiest way to find information about those grants is if you go on Google, and if you just go first home grants, first home grants caps, it will give you a table. The prices for new builds and existing houses, what regions, and the income that you can be earning to the maximum. If you're earning more than that, you are not qualified for those grants. Okay, so cool, thank you. What is the difference between a private sale and a sale through a real estate agent? Very good question. Thank you so much for that. So the difference between a private sale and the real estate agent is the bank will always ask you for valuation. Even if you have 20% deposit, the bank will always ask you for the valuation. So what might happen is you may walk down the street, you may see a neighbor, and you have a chat, and the neighbor says, hey, I'm looking to sell my house. And you say, cool, I'm looking to buy, and you agree on buying. You still need to get sales and purchase agreement. Everything still needs to be formal and through the solicitors, but it's just you don't have an agent involved. But in the bank's eyes, they don't know if the price you're paying is a real price or not for that property. That's what they will ask you for the valuation. If you're buying through the real estate agent, it's sort of market price. So the bank will more believe you, especially if you have 20% deposit, that it's a market price that you're paying. If you buy really cheap and the valuation comes back very high, oops, that jumped. Can the vendor request a higher price? No, the valuation only comes to you. Valuation does not go to the vendor. So unless you've disclosed to the vendor that, hey, I'm buying your house for 50K less than I should be, and the valuation is actually really high, unless you disclose this to the vendor has no idea what that valuation is. Valuation only comes to you and to me and to the bank. That's it. No one else gets that valuation. So keep your cards close to your chest. Don't tell everyone about the value. Yeah, so that should be fine. If all my deposit is coming from KiwiSaver, how do I pay the deposit that is paid to the real estate agent? So remember, we talked about it. Make sure you only put down cash that you have in the bank. So when you're talking to the real estate agent, you're sitting down there and he's saying, you're right, how much deposit are you going to put down when you go unconditional? You look into your bank account and you're like, oh, I only have $10,000. So you say to the agent, you look, all my money is trapped in the KiwiSaver. I don't have much. I can only offer you 10K, or I can only offer you 5K. I think legally you don't even have to put down anything at all, but usually the agents will make you to, because the way they'll present to the vendor is that, hey, this guy will put down this much deposit. So if anything goes sour, at least vendor, you will walk away with this much money. So that's how they sell you to the vendor. Hopefully that makes sense. What income should we have to buy a house in Auckland if we have 10 to 20% deposit? Income, yes, let's talk about that. So the banks have been changing a few things. One of them is we talk a lot about is in the news, you probably would hear it, test rates. So test rate is how we assess your income and how much you can afford when we put a certain amount that you're looking to borrow. So let's say a year ago, the test rates were 6%. A year later, they're now going to 7.5%. So it means that if the rates continue to go up, you can still afford to pay that mortgage. But what it means to you is that back then, if you only had 10% deposit, and if you had an income of 150K, you could easily borrow 600, 700K, no problem. Now, a year later, and 1% higher, you cannot borrow the same amount as you were able to a year ago. So we're looking at 100 to 150K less borrowing. So you need to make sure your incomes are really high if you want to buy an Auckland card. Well, again, it's all relative. I don't know your exact information. It's all general. So if you need specific advice, please reach out. More than happy to help and do some calculations for you. But yeah, just keep an eye that test rates have changed, and also the banks, the way they calculate your income and everything has changed. So what about a temporary overdraft on condition of KiwiSaver funds being released? Sometimes banks can help you with temporary overdrafts, but most of the time they try not to, try not to use the overdraft, because again, that will incur additional interest, and you don't want to be paying interest on a deposit if you can avoid. Just don't do it. I don't recommend that. Are there different rules for buying an apartment compared to a house? Yes, there is. Thank you so much for asking that. So tonight's presentation was mainly covering just a purchase, but if there is an apartment purchase, there are few extra hoops to jump through sometimes. The banks will want to know the body corporate minutes. They would want to know what sort of repairs need to be done on an apartment, if it's an old block of an apartment, let's say, what sort of size of an apartment, all of that matters. So if you are looking to buy an apartment, usually you may need 20% deposit. An apartment needs to be at least 45 square meters or more. Great. Some awesome questions here, guys. Very impressed. If two people want to buy a house, not being related, not partners, just friends, for example, are there any difficulties? No, not at all. Done many of friends before, no problem. We just need to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what are the future implications. The only thing I would suggest to my clients is make sure you've got proper agreements in place in terms of who owns what. So if you're putting in 50% deposit and the other person only putting 10% deposit, and in 3 years' time you want to sell the house, who is getting what? Are you getting 50-50, or is one person going to get more than the other? So just make sure you have good, solid agreements in place behind the scenes. But for the bank point of view, it's fine. I've done many of friends before, so no problem. And a lot of, I specialize a lot in single moms, it seems. I've helped a lot of single moms, and I see a lot of single moms combining now, because one single mom can't buy on her own, but two single moms can buy together. So I haven't done many single dads, but single moms, yes. Cool. Any other questions before we wrap it up? I hope tonight was informative. I hope it went quick for you and you've learned something tonight. If you walk away at least with one piece of information that would stick to your brain, that would be my job done. Right, for what period before purchase we must totally avoid overdrafts on bank accounts? What periods do they check? So the banks always check the last 3 months. So make sure for the last 3 months, you were good and you haven't gone into unarranged overdrafts. If you have an overdraft, but you haven't been using it, it's fine. If you have an overdraft and you've been using it, it's fine. It's the problem of unarranged overdrafts. If you go into the minus all the time without having that arrangement with the bank, that's the problem. So don't do that. But the rest should be fine. So if you're looking to put an application together, give yourself at least 3 months lead in to put yourself in the best position possible. Cool. Hopefully that helped. Great. So if tonight was helpful, can I please see some smiley faces? If you've learned something new today, just to brighten up my day before you all go. Very informative and easy to understand. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I hope that was helpful. So if you want to reach out to me direct, you're more than welcome to find my information where you found me. And as I said, I do run these webinars every now and then, but every month I do run them on specific market updates. So, where we talk about what the bank has done, what the government has done, and all that sort of stuff. And they're usually about 15 minutes long, so they're not too dreadful. So do come in. How can you find the price? Oh, last question. How can you find the price of a house value if it's going for auction? Again, the house is only valued how much someone's is able to pay for it. So when it goes to auction, it's really hard to determine. And if you don't have 20% deposit, I usually say to my clients, stay away from auctions, go into the auction and then put an offer if it hasn't sold. And at the moment, we're seeing a lot of them not being sold, so you can put an offer there. But it's really hard to find a value on a house unless you're prepared to pay for valuation. So unless you're prepared to part with $1,000 for a property that you may not win, that's the only way really to find out. What is a clean credit check? Oh gosh, I already said goodbye and you guys keep going. Okay, great. What is a clean credit check? So the clean credit check is when you have nothing hanging over you. So let me rephrase this. A clean credit check is when the bank goes and does your application and runs a credit check. There is no red flag that says to us that Mr. John has gone out, got a credit card with Q card 5 years ago, forgot to pay it, never paid it, and owes $1,000 to Q card. That's a bad credit check. Please don't do that. So on your credit check, it will come up with any inquiries that you've had since you came to New Zealand or since you turned 18. Things like even electricity and telephone, all of that will be on your credit check to show whether you've been paying your bills or not paying your bills. So that credit check is very important. You can run free credit checks on yourself as well. So if you Google my credit report, something, there is, I completely forgot right now, but there is a way to get a free report on yourself. So do check that, and it will give you a score as well. So high score is good, low score is not good. Does QV figures help if you're trying to see the general value? EQC is making a map where you can see all the values for the property. So does this give you any sense that could be useful? Yeah, QVs do give some sort of figures, but again, it depends where you are in the country. Christchurch could be completely different to Auckland, could be completely different to Invercargill. So it's very hard sometimes to know with those QV figures. And as I said, we just come out from a very hot market where the prices were going like crazy. And now we sort of in the market where prices are going down and correcting themselves. So those QVs may not be as the map will, I show QV for each house according to the plan I've seen. I'm not sure what you mean, Andrew, with that question. If you want to talk more, feel free to reach out afterwards and we can. Oh, they're making a portal. Okay. So maybe like Velocity or maybe like CoreLogic. So yeah, those guys also have homes.co.nz. Be aware of homes.co.nz. I know agents able to drive those prices. Sometimes they can log in and change the price right before they make a listing. So be aware of homes.co.nz values. That's the only one I'm aware of that can be rigged. But yeah, QV maybe like CoreLogic. If they've got a different portal, yeah, it should be fine. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for persevering with my English. I hope everything was easy to understand and I wasn't too fast. Great. And yeah, if you want to reach out, let me know. Just one phone call away or a text message or an email, more than happy. I've got a good team behind me now that can also come and help you with some of your questions as well. Great. Have a fantastic night, everyone. Enjoy.